All right. So we did Imperialism in Great Britain and South Africa, and it's by Bayes, Sean, Summer, and Ransom. So for 6.1, Rationales of Imperialism, the first primary source we have is a picture of from Puck magazine, and it's of Britannia, which is just the personification of Great Britain, which is the lady in the armor. And then she's standing with a Boer, which is a Dutch person that lives in South Africa, and an African man who's kneeling. And she's showing them that like her vision for the future of South Africa. And so you can see social Darwinism in this primary source from the depiction of the African compared to the Boer, because the African is kneeling, which suggests that they're inferior to the British and the Dutch. And also they're like half naked, which is like, it's just like why, but the British and Dutch are fully clothed. And then also he's seen holding a spear, but guns were used in this time. So it's like they're behind the Europeans technology wise, as well as like genetically. So for the second primary source for 6.1, it's a quote from Cecil Rhodes, and it's, "I contend that we are the first race in the world, and that the more of the world we inhabit, the better it is for the human race. If there be a God, I think that what he would like me to do is paint as much of the map of Africa British red as possible." So Cecil Rhodes was the prime minister of the Cape Colony, which is the southern tip of Africa. And this shows the white man's burden on the part of the British, because Rhodes genuinely thinks that the British are like the best civilization or government, and that the more of the world that they have control over, the better off those areas will be. Okay, so this is 6.2, state expansion from 1750 to 1900. And these are the different types of territories that Britain has control over that can be seen on the maps. So there's constituents, which is just the place in charge of everyone else, which is just Britain. And then there's colonies, which is just a territory subject to foreign rule. There's company rule, which on the maps is mostly seen in India, where the British East India Company has control like over the whole place. And then there are princely states, which is only in India, where a state with an indigenous ruler is in an alliance with the British. Then there's claims and occupations, which is where Britain claims a right to a territory and or occupies it with their military. There's protectorates, which is just a place that's controlled and protected by Britain. There's responsible government, which is when a territory is able to govern themselves and they kind of take control of themselves. And then there are dominions, which pretty much just marks that the territories eventually going to become fully independent. So like Canada was a dominion, as well as Australia. So the first map is British territory in 1750, and by 1750, Britain had control over colonies in America, as well as parts of Canada and India. At this time, the Dutch East India Company, or the VOC, controlled South Africa and the Cape Colony. So British territory in 1800. By 1800, the British had lost the American Revolutionary War and the American colonies along with it. By this time, Britain had control of more of India and some of Australia. In 1795, Britain invaded the Cape Colony and defeated the Dutch East India Company. However, it was given to the Batavian Republic, which is just a Dutch republic, in the Treaty of Amiens for the time being. And the Treaty of Amiens ended hostilities between the French and the British. So British territory in 1850. By 1850, the British officially had control over South Africa and the Cape Colony, as well as the whole Indian subcontinent. The British victory in the Battle of Cape Town in 1806 gave Britain control over the Cape Colony. British rule in South Africa was solidified in the Anglo-Dutch Treaty of 1814, which was a peace treaty between the Dutch and the British, which gave some lands back to the Dutch and just allowed the British to keep control of South Africa. So in 1900, Britain extended their reach further into Africa, and also the British government took over for the British East India Company in India. Also, by this time, the Boers in South Africa, which were the Dutch people that lived in South Africa, had began the Boer Wars to try and push the British out of the land. And this conflict was started after the discovery of gold and diamonds in South Africa.
The indigenous people, or the Zulus of South Africa, resisted imperialism and colonization from Great Britain. What happened was that Great Britain came in right after the Zulus had started to gain some freedom, become their own independent country from the Dutch, and they ended up getting in a war against them. And despite some tough battles, they ended up getting blown away, and Britain took over for their mines for the most part. Their big mining industry, such as diamonds and gold, were the main keepsake of their country, and when they lost the war, they ended up being put into concentration camps for rebellion by the British, and these concentration camps ended up becoming mining camps in the end. The photo displays one of these mining camps and shows all of the residents or Zulus of the country. And it proves that there were rebellions by the indigenous people, because why else would there be concentration camps if not to punish the rebellion spirit of the people? The British, in a social manner, enforced their religion on South Africa when they took over. The British would deploy plenty of troops and political figures, as is their custom, to the country, instead of mending with the country's cultures. And in doing so politically, enforcing their rules onto them, they also ended up, through interactions with the officers, employing the religion onto them as well. And then they ended up spreading religion across the entire country of South Africa. And if you look into the map onto the right side, you can notice all of the churches across South African continent or South African country, which proves that Christianity was placed across the country by the British, their imperialism. The diamond mining industry blew up in South Africa after young Aramis Jacobs found a diamond on his family farm in the mid-1860s. Ever since, South Africa has been a huge producer of diamonds and gold and other mining sorts of things, especially diamonds. The British took over this diamond industry when they took over and imperialized the country in the 1880s. When they took over South Africa, they immediately started mining camps based off the indigenous people, and these mining camps were eventually bought up along with the mines by a man named Cecil John Rhodes. His company, the De Beers Diamond Company, would mine diamonds using the Zulus or South African indigenous people in the concentration camps. The photo to the right shows the said use of the indigenous people inside camps. Once the diamonds were mined, they'd be transported back to Britain after being refined in the mining camps, which at that point were sold to the rich and wealthy of the world by the De Beers Company. Marie Antoinette is a prime example of the diamonds being traded and sold across to the wealthy in Europe, as can be seen by the diamond necklace around her neck in the photo to the right.
This is 6.5 Economic Imperialism. The quote's from a paper called African Labor in South Africa, and it shows that even though slavery was abolished in South Africa in 1834, many Africans were only able to find a job doing manual labor, mostly in gold and diamond mines. These workers were not paid fairly at all because there were many associations created to gradually decrease the wages given to African workers. In 1989, the yearly wage was only about 78 rand, which is $5.14. And about 10 years later, their wages were cut in half to about 36 rand per year, which is the same as about $2.37. Overall, the diamonds and gold found in South Africa were the most profitable resource for the British because they sold for such a high price and they could pay people extremely low wages for mining. In the picture to the left, you can see that all of the workers are African, and the only European to the left in the picture is most likely the employer of the miners. This is also 6.5 Economic Imperialism, and this map was created by James Cheshire to digitize the British trading routes by looking at old ship logs. This map shows that one of the most visited places was South Africa. This is because the port at Cape Town allowed the British to trade with Indonesia, and especially their colonies in India, without traveling on land or going through the Ottoman Empire. This is the main reason why the British colonized South Africa, not because they really wished to trade with the South Africans, but to use it as a stopover so they could do most of the trading with India.
All right, so Cecil Rhodes. He said that in one of his primary sources, he said, "To be born English is to win first prize in the lottery of life," which shows his belief in white man's burden. He also said that the world is nearly all parceled out, and what there is left of it is being divided up, conquered, and colonized. To think of these stars that you see overhead at night, these vast worlds which we can never reach. I would annex the planets if I could. I often think of that. It makes me sad to see them so clear and yet so far. This shows his and the United Kingdom's belief in and strong imperialistic ideas that they followed through with in their quest to take over all of Africa. All right, this one it's a similar thing. It shows Cecil Rhodes and the way he represented the United Kingdom and the way that they wanted to take over much of Africa. The orange areas show, as it says in the quote on the page, all that red, that's my dream. That's what he wants to add that to England. Cecil Rhodes himself. Cecil John Rhodes was born into the upper class in the United Kingdom. He was sickly throughout his childhood, leading his parents to send him to Africa by boat when he was 17 in hopes of improving his health, because they believed that the weather in Africa, they believed that it would, because it was hotter, it would help his health. Once he was there, he wanted to take advantage of the economic opportunities in Africa. When he was 18, he entered the diamond business in Kimberley, South Africa in around 1871. Later, he started a diamond company called De Beers that survives and dominates the diamond industry to this day. Over the course of around 25 years, he dominated the industry, with De Beers being founded, and it was a kind of a culmination of his efforts in 1888. In 1881, he joined the Cape Parliament. With the backing of the diamond industry, he became the 6th Prime Minister of the Cape Colony in 1890. He held that position until 1896, when he became sick, and due to this, he became very anxious to get things done. He rushed a lot of his plans, resulting in an ill-advised raid of Transvaal called the Jameson Raid, which was unsuccessful due to bad planning and communication. He died in 1902. He had never married and has no known children. He believed in white supremacy, stating that to be born English is to win the first prize in the lottery of life, which I've already said. Due to this, he believed that it was white man's burden to take care of and better the lives of the people of South Africa. Contradicting this, though, he also passed the Grey Act, which allowed England to tax South Africans heavily, forcing them to work as near slaves in the diamond mines. This was, of course, highly beneficial to him, as he was the founder and of the main diamond company, De Beers, which dominated the diamond industry.
This is 6.8, Causation in the Imperial Age. This picture was taken in 1897, just showing a parade in Cape Town. In the background, there's the Opera House, which shows that the British brought over some of their cultural aspects during the colonization, and many people who lived in South Africa began having the opportunity and time to attend more activities, such as visiting the Opera House. The mass amount of people at the parade also shows that many were able to have some extra time off of work to attend social events. Below is a map of Cape Town in 1897. The map lists the main buildings in the city, showing that since the British arrived in the early 1800s, there have been many new additions to the city for the purpose of enjoyment, such as the Opera House, the public library, a museum, and the new city club. These additions show that South Africa not only had the surplus resources, but also the extra time to spend on many leisure activities. There was also a fire station and a police station, improving the safety and well-being of the town and its people. This is a works cited page.